back, you can't just shoot through.
What I'm going to show you here are the different types of going kneeling into a kneeling position and then going into a prone position. Kneeling, there's two basic positions using both knees or one knee. Now with a single knee, you'll see a lot of people take and they'll draw and step into it like this. Now I don't like that because it doesn't feel as controlled as the way I do it, which is coming down, taking your weight, pretty much centering it on your left leg or your weak side leg. And then, so the right leg can lift up. And we're just going to take and relax and just drop almost straight down and then just control that braking effect right at the bottom. So we're actually controlling our impact to the ground with our knee. So it's more like this. Now the torso and the upper body is going straight vertical down in the shortest possible path. So it's just nice and smooth. Weight goes over to the left side. Nice and controlled. Now you can control that speed depending on how much muscle you have to stop you, because what you don't want to do is just smash this knee into the ground. And you can see that knee just coming and edging in there. If you hit hard, what's going to happen is your gun's going to bounce like that. Now don't remember that even going to a kneeling position or whatever, or especially prone, we're not going to get the finger on the trigger until the sights are up and directed at the target. At two knees, which you'll see some people shoot standards with, is right like this, and they'll just drop into this position. Now, some people can actually sit back and sit on their heels. I don't think this is nearly as stable as a single knee position, and the other disadvantage to it is that you can't move out of that position. So go ahead and try the kneeling position here.
I just did it your way.
No, that wasn't my way. That was the other way.
Right.
You still try to take a little step with your left foot. Okay, get your left foot so all your weight is on it. And now just relax your right leg and drop straight. Try to keep your vertical and come straight down and into it like that. Now try doing it faster and then smoothly just setting down to the bottom. There you go. That looked nice and clean. Now going prone, there's also two ways to go prone, the easy and the hard way. The easy way, you take your offhand and your right knee or your strong knee, take those to the ground, and then you kick out from there. Now we draw first and then go prone. We don't go prone and try to draw at the same time. So what we're going to do is I come down and kick out. Now when I am prone, I want to make sure everybody remembers and understands one thing. I want as much of my forearms and the gun on the ground and stabilized as possible. If that gun's up and floating off the ground, you're going to see that the whole thing will rock all over the place. You won't have nearly as much control. Notice how my forearms are locked into the ground and the gun is stabilized on the ground. One of the things you want to watch when you're putting the gun on the ground or on a table and trying to fire it is to do this in practice to make sure that those magazines don't push up into the slide and cause a malfunction. That's just another thing to think about. All right, going prone the hard way or the fast way, it's a committed act. You can't not commit to it. You have to kick all the way out. You draw the gun out, you take your left hand or your off hand, put him straight to the ground like this, and then you kick out. So we're going to do this all the way through just a couple of times.
Are you sure? Are you committed?
I'm not that committed. All right, so we're going to have you go prone the easy way. So try that out. Since You were complaining about your left wrist. If you've got any sports injuries of any type, make sure you try to do it this way to reduce the possibility of injury while you're going prone. Go ahead. We're gonna just do it nice and slow first.
Okay.
You're gonna draw. That right knee is gonna come down to the ground. There you go. Step forward. You gotta remember, this is where the center of you is gonna be when you land.
Okay.
Step forward a little bit, both feet. This hand is gonna come, okay, take this knee down now, just like we're going to the kneeling position. That hand comes straight down. Then you'll work it out and kick the feet out. Now, notice how you've got your gun up off the ground.
Right.
We want that and all the forearm onto the ground as much as possible. Where's your gun?
On the ground.
Get your gun on the ground and get it solid and stable. Kevin, when you've got a position you've got to go kneeling into or draw into a position, one of the things you can do is you always want to look at the spot you're going to. Okay, because a lot of people keep their focus so much on the targets, because the next thing we're going to be covering is our movement and our shooting on the move. So it's one of those primary things you're going to be noticing in that area. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come over here. I'm going to be looking at the target after I know I can put my foot or my knee or whatever placement on the exact spot I want to go. Okay. So I'm here, I come up to the target. Now I know I can step in and down to it. So if you watch that, and you can, when it's real short, you can block your steps. So it's going to be right leg, left leg, knee. Okay, so I'm just going to do one now just to show it. Okay. To move into a position around a barricade or something. The same thing works the other way. Most of the positions, the most critical thing about shooting in a position is to maintain that integrity of your upper body being leaned forward and take the time it takes to make the shot that counts. Don't sit there forever. You know, we can't just sit there forever to make that shot, but take the time it takes. Don't try and force it or rush it.
Okay.
Okay? Why don't you go ahead and try getting into that kneeling position. That's pretty good.
I found myself do the forward kneel instead of
because you're coming into a position, you have to do it that way when you're moving. When you're just standing here, we can just drop to a knee, but when you're moving, you're going to be walking into that position.
Okay.
Okay? Now, when shooting weak hand, I just take my strong hand off the gun, transfer the gun to the weak hand in a safe manner, keeping those fingers out of that trigger guard or you might have an accidental discharge. And I use the same stance also. So I'm up here, I'll take and lift my hand up, transfer the gun over, bring it back out. You can see I'm still square up and pointed right at the target. And one of the critical things about weak hand shooting, just like strong hand and freestyle shooting, is that trigger finger position. Since we don't shoot that much, a lot of people have a tendency to get that finger way into that trigger guard. It's definitely something you don't want to do. Now, drawing to weak hand, there's a couple of different ways of doing it. You can come up, you can grab the scope, bring the gun up and put it into the weak hand. You can grab the base of the gun down here on the mag well. Or you can do like I do. Since I've got fairly long hands, I bring the gun up and I grab a full grip on him, then I just hold him in my fingers, transfer him over, slide him out, and I get my finger in the correct position on that trigger. So now I'll do one for you. Hey, you can see that muzzle moving around a little bit there. Sometimes when you come up to a stage, you'll have 3 targets, and it's going to be a 6, reload 6, reload 6. Your first 6 will be freestyle, your second 6 will be strong hand, and your third 6 will be weak hand. So you're going to have a draw, 6 shots, a reload, 6 shot strong hand, another reload, and then 6 shots weak hand. One of the things you can do to save yourself some time on a stage like that is to prep up your magazine when you're going from your strong hand reload to your weak hand. So I'm going to do it here on film just to show you what it looks like. So, gun comes up, we've shot our 6. We're going to do our reload to strong hand now, grabbing the weak hand magazine at the same time. Then all we have to do is come out and transfer them over after the load. Make sure you're not contacting the left side of your body with your strong hand when you're shooting weak hand. So you're not over here doing this. You can't support that side at all. If you're shooting strong hand, you can't support it over here at all. So just take that hand, put it in the middle of your chest. One of the other things to do when you're shooting weak or strong hand is to take and anchor the off hand so that it's not just out here flopping. If it's out here, you're going to find that you're going to actually get a pendulum effect out of it. So when the gun's going off, that hand will be helping you move everything around. If we anchor it to ourselves or put it in our pocket or something, it's not going to move around on us. Target transitions are really understated as for things people practice on the range. It's so important that they're fast and efficient. You can lose so much time with a bad target transition. Now, a target transition is when you're going from like a target over here to a target over here. It's the amount of time it takes to get the gun after firing on this target over to this target. So you want to make sure you fired a good clean shot so you don't have to do that come back to it thing. And look over to this one. We're going to snap our eyes over to the exact spot we want that bullet to hit. Then we're going to move the gun. The gun's going to follow the eyes. We don't want the gun or the eyes staying on the gun the whole time. We want to snap our eyes and then have everything lead that, because the eyes are the fastest thing in the human body. So to learn it, we're going to actually break it into steps and have you aim the gun up here. Okay, gun's up. I'm just going to check your stance really quick. Great. Now you're going to look at a spot over here, snap the gun over to it. Now, do you notice it kind of bounced to a stop?
Yes.
What's happening there is when you're hitting the brakes, go ahead and bring the gun down for a second. When you're hitting the brakes on the transition, a way of looking at it, it's like when you hit the brakes on your car. You're driving down the road and you hit the brakes really hard, and if you keep them held at a constant rate, your whole car is going to go like this when you're done. Well, if you just slam that gun to a stop, your arm's just going to bounce at the end. So what we don't want to have happening is that big bounce. We want to avoid that as much as possible. So we want to float that gun into that shot. So that gun's going to be coming over, and the brakes are going to get on, or we're going to get on the brakes just before we get that gun to a stop, and then we're going to ease off of them and slide that gun into the target. So it's more of a smooth motion over on the end. And that's the important thing with it. So just bring the gun up, and we'll just try a couple here. Okay, now you're going to look at a spot over here, snap the gun. Now look at a spot over there, and you want to focus as cleanly and precisely as possible on the exact spot you want that bullet to go. So snap the gun. Okay, look over here, snap the gun. Okay, that's your basic target transition. We'll practice them out on the range.
Okay.
Okay. To the right, snap the gun. Look to the left, snap the gun. To the right, snap the gun. Now smooth that into position. And to the right, snap the gun. All right, looking good.
All right, I'm gonna fire a couple.
Reloading is one of the more important activities, and I don't mean reloading in your shop, actually the ammo. I mean actually inserting a magazine into the gun. That's one of the most important things we do next to drawing as far as most of our basic skill package, just so we can get over it so we're doing movement and stuff like that. It doesn't get in our way and it doesn't hinder us in a stage. I teach the reload in 3 steps to start out with, and then in 2 steps, and then we'll do it off of a table to show an efficient way of practicing it at home. The first position is the gun is out on target, and we've taken that left hand and it comes down to the magazine, and the arm is straight with the magazine and the wrist is straight this way and this way. Okay, So we're fully angled with it. So we're going to just grab the whole base of the magazine, not like this down here. So you're grabbing that whole base. Now we keep this finger relaxed and not flat against there. So we keep it flat against there, we can take and jam that finger into that mag well and break it or damage it. So that's the first position. So the gun's out on the target. We're just going to use our hands just to practice the first position.
Okay.
So take your hands up. Okay, position 1 is to here. Now this hand is coming back and we're going to be rotating and we're going to keep the hand up at eye level. One of the things I always try to do is try to keep the gun pretty much in front of my face. It keeps my focus downrange. If there's ever a problem and I trip, the gun's out in front of me. If I trip with the gun down here when I'm running, what happens? You get bundled up underneath you, and you don't want that as a safety problem.
Okay.
So I always reload out here. I always move out here with the gun up in front of me. So I bring the hands back. You can find a comfortable spot. Some people start out by just bringing their elbow back or their arm back until they get a solid position on their body. That can be a good starting point for them. And the gun's out. This is position 1. Now I'm looking at the inside edge on the mag well here.
Okay.
And what I'm looking for is I want to just be able to see that edge. My finger's out of the trigger guard, and I've gone to pushing the magazine button. I want that magazine button pushed prior to bringing the gun back. So as it's coming back, or right as soon as possible, push it so that mag's coming out early, not turned sideways. The mag is going to fall out a whole lot slower coming out sideways than when it's vertical.
Okay.
So let's just practice position 1. Take your gun up, put it on target. Okay, and 1. Now,
That's the how not to grab the wrong mag.
hey, that happens. That's how we're learning the positioning on the belt. You've got to practice these all the time so you know the system you're working with and the belts. The nice thing about that double belt system is that your mags are positioned the same every time. So it becomes an index point so you're not looking for things.
Okay.
So the gun's up. 1. Now, your focus goes to that mag well for that insertion. The only time we really don't have to focus on that mag well is after you've done 10, 15,000 of them, and you can do them in the dark blindfolded and throw that mag in every single time. That's the only time we can take our focus off.
Sure,
of
we'll
doing
be there by tomorrow.
Yeah, by tomorrow we'll probably be there. Guns up. 1. Okay, now position 2, the gun comes, or the magazine comes up to the gun, and it almost inserts. It's just sitting outside. It's not inside the mag well, and it's not out like this. We want to be able to check our alignment with everything and make sure that the magazine equals the angle of the gun and that it's coming up nice and clean. And then from this point, we know the mag's going to go in, so our eyes are going to snap back to the exact spot on the target we're going to shoot, and we're going to insert that mag, reestablish our grip, and drive the sights back out to the target. Go ahead and holster. The basic steps of the reload are guns up, position 1, position 2, position 3, guns back out. Now you notice I'm minimizing my head movement, my shoulder movement, everything.
Shooter ready. Stand by. Very good. 9-7 on the reload. 8-6 on the draw. Shooter ready. Stand by.
What was the time on that reload?
6-5.
7-1. That was a 71. There's 2 types of reloads in the IDPA. You've got your emergency reload, which is also a reload from slide lock, and your tactical reload. Your emergency load is identical to an IPSC reload, with the exception you're going to be hitting the slide catch to load another round into the gun as you're bringing the gun back up. So your gun's up, and the gun's gone off, so it's locked back in position. We do a normal reload. The magazine's allowed to hit the ground with this because there's no ammo in it. Bring the gun back up. As the gun's coming up, we hit the slides catch and fire the shot. A tactical reload, or a reload with retention, we have to retain the magazine because it has some ammunition in it still, and we have to retain that on our body. We're not allowed to put it in our mouth or in any pockets above about here on our chest. So what we're going to do with a tactical reload, the gun comes up, the shot goes off, we're going to take the magazine out of the gun. That's going to go in our pocket. The other mag's going to come up, insert, and back out. Now, a reload with retention is the exact same thing I just did, but there's two types of them. You can retain it in the pocket immediately and then get the other magazine, or we can do a proper tactical load, which is we go to the other magazine first, bring him up, we pin in between our fingers, take this magazine out, insert that magazine, and that can go back in our pocket or back in our mag pouch. Now, when you come up and you've got a table position or you got to draw off a table, what you do is you take your gun out, you got it into a position. Sometimes it'll be on an X, sometimes it's in a drawer. One of the nice things about the draw that we're working with is you can always get to the side of the gun no matter where it's at. So I come down on the front of the trigger guard and the back of the gun and pop the gun up and then flip them into my hand.
Okay.
Okay? There's other ways of drawing off of a table also. You can do a pickup like this and lift the gun, or you can come in from behind and pick him up. I like this one because he seems to get the fullest grip for me. You've got to figure out what you want to do with your shooting.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to be here, grab the gun, pop him up, and go out to the target. The second way is a lift and bring him out. Now, you want to lift that gun after you've gotten your hand into position for it. And the reasoning for that is, if you don't have your hand in position for it and it's a slick surface, you'll take and scoot that gun right off the table. That's the thing that happens also if you've got a real slick surface and you come in from behind on the gun, you'll just scoot that gun straight forward. This is also nice and safe because it gives us an index point to look at with our eyes, right down to the spot, and then our eyes can go back to the target and pick that gun up. And we won't end up doing one of these. Boom, going around through the table. So, just like that. Go ahead, set your gun down and try it out. Exactly. Now try out a lift. You can see that feels just a little bit slower to do, doesn't it?
Just a bit.
Nice and smooth. Okay.
It's hard to lift this gun. It doesn't have the side. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Reholster your gun. The other thing we can do off of a table is sometimes we have to do reloads off of them, but that can be a great way for us to practice the reloads. Because when we're practicing loads, if we're just standing there doing reloads and bending over the whole time, picking a magazine up off the ground, you can't do them very effectively. There's not a lot of them you can do. If you set up your magazines, say you've got 5 or 6 magazines to set up, and we're only going to work with 3 here, you can do a set of magazines in the time it takes you to do just 1 reload off the belt. So you just start with the gun up and go to them. Now I'm going to take those magazines, I'm going to lay them out so I can fan them out. Now at home you can practice these off of a coffee table. And it's nice and easy. You can do 5 or 6 of them right in a row and then set them up again. You can do 100 reloads in just a 5-10 minute period. And we can practice the steps on these just like we would off of the belt. Or we can do the full reload, pausing it right there before we insert it into the gun. So I'm going to do just a couple off the table to just show you. Now you notice that pause actually helped me because I was able to watch that other magazine fall out of the gun before I put this one back into it. So you can even get a draw practice in off the table too. So you can come up, draw them. Just angle them to your wrist and make sure they're nice and comfortable. Now you go ahead and try some out, Kevin.
Take one of yours.
Yeah, borrow a couple of mine if you want. Now, is your hand coming down like this on that magazine? No, on the magazine. See how your wrist is bent out?
Let's get them
No,
turned.
no, no. Leave it up like that. You don't want them laying sideways because you can't grab them like that.
Okay.
They're in the belt holster or in the mag pouches like this.
Okay.
So we want to take them out and position him so we angle him with the wrist. So when we're picking them up, we're kind of picking them up in a fanning motion because we're going to pick it up out here. We're not going to want to pick it up like this, like that.
Okay.
And you want enough space between them. You've got them set up right. You want enough space between them that you don't hit each of them. When you're coming down to grab one, you don't disturb the other one for practicing. Okay. Go ahead, do a draw.
Not like that.
Now, work on really freezing up that position right here where the gun's up and building that in as a nice smooth pause, because you can always get rid of that pause. But I tell you, when you're in a stage where it's a required reload and you do that pause, you'll hit your reload every time, and that's the most important thing, versus forcing one and screwing it up and costing yourself a lot of points.
Okay.
So let's just do a couple. Yeah, you can even have a couple extra. Now notice how when you go to position, the end of position 1 right here, oh, make sure you get them pointed the right direction. Go ahead and draw and do a reload and stop the magazine just outside the gun. Okay, now hit your load, gun back out, eyes back on the target. Okay, when you were doing them off the table, you were actually coming to here, and you were stopping down here to line them up. We want that magazine almost inserted.
Okay.
All right. There, that's a nice load. Now, this doesn't have to be a forced activity. We're looking for smooth and clean, consistent, you know, everything's the same every time. And you can't learn it by forcing it. Now, what did you just do with your magazines? You just put them the wrong direction, didn't you? And if I let you try to load like that, it's amazing how far you can get it stuffed into the gun and not get it back out.
Thank you.
All right. There's 3 basic things we do in a shooting stage, such as IPSC or IDPA competition. We do shooting on the move, shooting static, or we're running. And we focus on those 3 primary areas for our training. So we always start out in a box. We leave a box in the shooting on the move position because we want to float out of the box. We're running in between. We go back into a shooting on the move or type of position to get into the next box, and we go back to our static position. So it's a fairly simple concept that way to break the stages up. So you can figure out, looking at a stage, I'm going to be running here, I'm going to be shooting on the move here, I'm going to be static here, and you can figure out how to get in and out of positions that way. To learn shooting on the move, we use a water bottle. And the reasoning for this is it takes our focus off the targets and everything else in the range and just brings us back to the actual where the gun would be. We don't have to worry about pointing it in any particular direction. It's something we can do in the backyard, we can do it in our house, whatever. So we take this, we put it into the position of the gun in our positive forward stance, and we just float it out there, and we focus on the water and keeping the water steady so we're nice and solid, and when we start moving around. And we have to teach our body how to move without moving this around. Okay, so let's just start that out. Shooting on the move with the bottle, we want to keep that as solid as possible. We're going to leave our focus here. We don't have to worry about being anywhere with a gun. We can do this in our backyard, in our house, or wherever. So we're going to keep our focus right there. Let's go for a walk, and you'll notice that it bounces up and down quite a bit. Now we've got to figure out our body position to smooth that out. What we're going to need to do is lower ourselves a little bit, just a little, and we're going to be walking heel-toe. So we're going to be walking on our heels to the toes and rolling them in. Now if we can imagine a small cushion of air underneath our feet, so that when our foot's hitting, it's not going like this, because you'll notice Now when it goes like that, that whole water goes, it bounces quite a bit. So now if you just roll that foot onto the ground, we can keep that as solid as possible.
I see.
So we want to just have that. And imagine you've got a rod through your shoulders so that everything, all the action, all the movement is all happening down below. We want to be nice and flexible and relaxed. And we're just going to take and walk around just a little bit here in a little circle. We don't have to worry about any targets or anything, so we're actually going to walk in a circle, okay? Go ahead and turn it and keep, don't worry about the direction you're aimed. Just focus on keeping that water level as smooth and as solid as possible. Okay, now make sure you have it up at where the gun would be. Now, notice your whole body is torqued off center. You're standing there like this. We want that upper torso centered, upright, and relaxed. So it's more of a up, relaxed, and we're just going to pick those feet up and set them so that water doesn't hardly move at all. So we're nice and solid. Now if you keep your back really tight in the hip area, you're going to have a lot more hard work trying to keep everything stable up here. So we want to be able to have our hips flexible and everything be able to move. The first place we get rid of the energy is the way we put our feet on the ground. If we put our feet on the ground harshly, we're going to obviously transfer that energy up. We get rid of more energy in our knees by keeping them relaxed and fluid, and then the hips have to be able to move separately from everything else. The whole goal being nothing moving above here.
Okay.
Okay, so it's nice and solid and we can move. Now we want to keep our feet, we don't want our feet ever crossing over each other in any way, in any type of movement. And we want to keep them at least probably a minimum of 4 inches apart so we never run into this, which is going to translate right into that gun.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead and bring your water bottle gun up. And let's go for it. Pretty good. Come on back here. That's good. Let's graduate to the gun.
Okay.
Okay. Now we've changed Kevin over to an open gun from his limited gun because learning to shoot on the move is actually easier with an open gun. You get better feedback from the dot itself when you're moving around. You'll see the dot and how much movement is exaggerated through your scope. So we're going to have him learn to do it with this. So go ahead and clear your gun out for me and check it. Okay, clear, slide forward, hammer down. Draw your gun. Okay, now you've got your dot on?
Yep.
Great. Now, are you centered up? Are you in your shooting position? No, you're not. Now, we're going to start walking. You're going to keep that dot on a fixed point over here, like that barrel. Okay, keep that on that barrel. And we're just going to walk in a little diagonal line over here, keeping that dot. And you can see how much that thing moves around, doesn't it? You can see it in your muzzle.
Yep.
So go ahead and bring on it back. When we're shooting at a target, we've got to be able to shoot a zone type of shooting instead of an exact spot when we're shooting on the move, because that dot's going to be moving all over the place, or the front sight, and the sight's going to be moving all over the place. So we're looking for a decent shot, a good shot, and a solid shot, but not the perfect shot, because we're probably never going to have the sights in that spot at the same time. And by the time it's there, it'll have moved off by the time your brain realizes it. So we're going to be shooting for a zone on the target with this type of situation. Go ahead and bring the gun up. And now, as smooth as you can, roll those heels in. Just start walking. Feel your feet. Take some of your focus down to your feet. And not having any, there you go. Good enough. Now that gives you a concept of the shooting on the move and what it takes to get that, just to get some practice in doing it. You've got to keep those sights on the target and centered. And a great way to practice it is to set up just a single target at home or out on the range and just walk in all different directions, keeping the gun on that target exactly centered for it. You got any questions on that?
No, it's just seems difficult to get that balance and break here so I don't get the bounce?
Well,
Tendency to be too rigid.
Everybody has a tendency to be too rigid in their shooting structure. They all feel forced, and the more tight you are, the more your shoulders are up, the more your arms are locked. All of that is going to directly affect it.
Okay.
The other thing that's going to happen is, if you take your shoulders and they're equal with your hips or the rear of your hips, you're going to find out how much harder it is to control it. Go ahead and try that once. Now, go ahead and bring your gun up. We're going to try you in a bad shooting position. Go ahead and try moving with it.
Yeah.
No, go ahead and try going forward. It doesn't work, does it?
No.
And besides, you
I'm
look
all over
funny.
the place.
You kind of look funny.
Thank you.
So I'll stir it up. In USPSA shooting and IDPA shooting, we always have positions that we have to get into. And USPSA will have a lot of what they refer to as their boxes. Now, this isn't a legal USPSA box. The legal boxes have a minimum of 2-inch height on them, so you can feel it with your foot, whether you're outside or inside of it. We're not going to worry about that too much. We're going to primarily worry about getting into the box properly. Okay. Now, we use the 3 different things: the shooting on the move, the running, and the static position. Our goal with the whole thing of going into a box or into a position is to get into as comfortable and as our natural shooting stance. Now, our height might change vertically going into it because we're going to be running and trying to stop. Well, if it does, what we don't want to do is get into position and stand back up. You've lost yourself a quarter to a half a second just by doing that. So whatever height you come in at is the height you stay at, shoot at, and leave at. Okay? So now to break these boxes up and to explain the box entry itself, or a position entry, because you can do the same thing without a box, we're going to take, and I'm going to be working right here, coming into this box. Now, if I've got a box over to the right, or a shooting position over to the right, what am I going to consider my entry foot?
Should come in.
Now, the entry foot is the second to the last foot that hits the ground. It's the you've got 2 feet to enter that on, or left foot or right foot. Which am I going to work with?
I think you just lead with your forward foot in, if that's coming across.
Come in like this, you mean?
Yes.
And then lift up this one and set it in here? Like that?
Yes.
Okay, well, what happens if you had too much momentum doing that?
You'd probably fall out of the box.
Right, and you see that a lot of times in competition. You'll see people come in here, they'll have too much momentum, they won't set up right, and they'll be off center, and they'll just carry themselves right through the box. So I'm going to try to enter that with my left foot, and you can see what happens. You're going to come in, your toes are going to be curled up, pointed outwards like this. That heel's going to hit. Now, do we want to hit that heel hard?
No.
No, we want to place it in there like we were shooting on the move, right? So it's going to be smooth. Set it down, the gun's up. This hand, or this foot comes over. We center our body up, and we're nice and solid in our shooting position. You could come over if you wanted to and push on me, and I'm not going to go anywhere. So that's the goal.
Okay.
Now, one of the things to look for in our legs is to come over and not have us go like this. Notice how my leg straightens out?
Yes.
People don't center themselves up a lot. And that can cause a lot of problems trying to get back out of the box. It's nice and solid and centered. Go ahead and try that a couple of times. Oops, from over here. That looked great. It's a pretty simple concept to work with. It's kind of hard to figure out how to learn it, because the thing we're going to add now is, how do you find the exact spot you're going to go to?
I was about ready to ask you,
How do you position that?
how do I position from on the move and my focal point?
Well, your focal point is actually the exact spot you want that foot, the entry foot, to hit that box. So the way I do it anyway is I'll take the 2 boxes and I'll pick out a spot for that foot. As soon as I'm done shooting in this one, that's where my eyes will go. So I'll look at that exact spot and I'll run over there, and at some point my brain will tell me I can land my left foot or my right foot on that spot. That's when I go up and locate the target I'm going to shoot, bring the gun up, and start doing my entry. The gun's always up a step or 2 out.
Okay.
Now, it's a lot easier for me because I keep the gun up in front of my face when I'm moving anyway. I never have it down here running, because from a safety standpoint, what we can run into is this thing here, or once again, like we discussed earlier, the prone and trip, and end up pointing it at ourselves.
Okay.
We really want to avoid that. So what I want you to do is you're going to step out there a little bit, and then you're going to look at a spot over here, think of what foot you want to enter it on, and just go ahead and move into position. Nice and solid, nice and solid. Now looking at that spot is critical, because if you don't look at it, you won't be able to find the box.
Right.
Okay? Once you get these things figured out, they're fairly easy to apply. They're just hard to do the first time.
Okay.
Okay? So now I'm going to do the two positions here. We've got a box here and a box over there. And I'm going to just draw, aim here, go over there, and aim through that box. I'm going to have the camera follow it. So go ahead and do that for me. Let's see what it looks like. Now, Kevin, I noticed you slipped there.
Yeah, that
Why'd you slip?
desert dirt,
Desert dirt. What kind of shoes you get on?
running shoes.
Yeah, they don't have very much traction, do they?
Apparently not.
Notice the big spikes? In the IPSC shooting, we're allowed to wear spikes, or USPSA. In IDPA, you can't. So we find the shoes with the biggest cleats on them that are still tennis shoes or military shoes.
Okay.
But these will really help you coming in and moving around out here, because you can really plant yourself a lot better.
Okay.
Let's do that one more time. Let's try them at full speed now. When you're moving, get moving, hit the brakes, come in nice and solid. Now you got a little off balance and a little too far forward, aren't you?
Yes.
So one way we can look at this is find out what our goal is to be over here. Where do we want to be standing? Do we want to be in the front of the box? Do we want to be in the rear of the box? And what's our stance? So we're going to be coming in fairly aggressive. We're going to be a little lower. And then we just figure out by reversing it what we need to do. So that's where you want to be. So this is where you want that foot to land. Now we want this foot landing in the shooting position.
Okay.
Why is that?
Just takes out another movement.
Well, it takes out another movement, but it'll direct our whole body to the correct position, to our natural point of aim.
Okay. So if we're coming back over here, I want to make sure I enter in this position.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Because if you don't, it's not going to set up right.
Okay.
Or you're going to have this step out. What I see most of the time in my training is people coming in, they'll have the gun up and everything, their hips will still be pointed that way. They'll come in and you'll see this. And that'll add a quarter second or a bad shot, because their whole body is torquing with that foot and the gun's going to do this with it. It's just going to sit there and whip sideways.
Or you end up shooting cross.
I've seen it all. My favorite was a bunny hop going into the box. The guy ran over here, couldn't figure out what foot to use. Kevin, if you were shooting around a barricade at the steel plate right there, how would you get in there and do that? Okay, now you got to watch on a barricade. You're doing pretty good here. We want to make sure our shoulders stay in front of our hips, because a lot of people will come around a barricade and they'll try to lean back to get around them. As long as you stay more forward, you can use this right leg to get and lean, and then use your left as kind of a counterbalance. If you watch me, step back. If I get up here, you can play with your positioning and your distance from the barricade. So you're here. Now here, I can only get to about here comfortably. Let's say I had a real hard angled target. I come up here and I'm going to get up pretty close to him, and I'm going to actually slap my body into the barricade. And we can actually shoot all the way around him like that. We're not going to do that on this side because the wood's all torn up.
So actually when you're coming around, let's say we have targets, do you you turn your body as you go, or do you lean further?
You do a little bit of both. You start out, most of the targets we're going to be shooting, we're not going to have to actually rotate the upper body to get to them, because we can get to pretty comfortably, maintaining spacing or whatever, we can get to about there, and that's going to take care of almost all the targets we have to shoot.
Okay.
If we have to turn our body, we really can't get a lot further. We can get a little more movement out of it. If we've got to get way over there, we really have to get into that barricade and lean them over. Now you've obviously got the other option of going strong hand.
Okay.
But you're not going to shoot nearly as fast doing that.
Okay.
So go ahead.
You don't want that.
Don't want what?
You don't want to lose that foot position.
Try to keep them on the ground if you can, but you can do that by getting your chest. See how you're not actually contacting the barricade?
I see.
Now you can wrap all the way around because you're using it for support.
Okay.
That obviously depends on the strength of the barricade as to whether or not that'll work or not. Now, we just got done with the movement section, so we're going to show you how to do the moving in and out of a barricade. Well, I do a thing, I call it cheating the barricade, because usually they're so narrow, they're really hard to get a good position on when you're really coming into them fast.
Okay.
So I'll actually act like my entry foot is the foot just outside of it.
Okay.
It's the foot landing on the ground last before the first foot goes into the box. So I'll actually look at that spot here, come up, we're up on the target, and then we just pick up that foot and set them in.
Okay.
And that way my momentum's gone.
Why don't you show me one from over here, Matt?
From over on this side. We've shot. Now if I'm going over the right side, the nice thing about this one is you really kill the momentum for going and leaning around the right side of the barricade, which can be a real problem. So you're going to come and hit here, up, your gun's up, and around. You're just picking and setting that foot into the barricade, and you're almost all right leg on your stance.
Okay.
Your hips are back, rotated. So let me do a kind of a fast one there. And you can see it's pretty smooth coming in.
Right.
Works
Same
out
way
good.
with target transition. You're putting those brakes on and coming to a nice smooth halt instead of a crisp stop.
Yeah, because if you come in, let's say you come in really hard, I have a hard time doing it that way because I've done it this way for so long.
Would you like me to demo that?
Your whole body comes slamming to a stop. You don't want that.
Okay.
Because your gun's going to do this.
Okay.
You want to do it as efficiently as possible. You don't want to slow down too early. But you're going to be changing from your running position to your shooting on the move position right about here, 2-3 steps out. And then that'll help you transition your body for the stop.
But even if I have a perception of coming in slower than I would think I would, it will help me transition to the shot quicker because I'm more balanced and ready to shoot.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. And then being off balance and shooting just doesn't work.
Okay.
It doesn't work. It's so uncomfortable you'll end up rushing the shots and pushing everything.
Okay.
Okay? Timing drills are what I use to figure out the recoil of the gun and how I want to manage it. Timing is the subconscious neuromuscular response to the recoil of the firearm. The guns move so fast we can't figure out consciously how to control the guns, even though that's what we try to do. You can't do it consciously. The gun cycles in 5 to 600ths of a second. One of the best things you can do is get out on the range and do some timing drills. It'll help you out a lot. It'll help you figure out your grip, and it'll help you understand the recoil of your gun. One of the things that I always do is anytime I change any parts on the gun, like recoil springs or change my load, I always redo my timing drills just so I know if anything's changed and I get to adjust my body to the gun itself. What you're going to do with your timing drills is take your first 3 magazines, you're going to shoot a light grip on the first one, a medium grip on the second magazine, and a heavy grip on your third magazine. This will help you figure out what grip pressure you like the best for your shooting. So your first magazine, a nice light relaxed grip, still controlling the gun. It's not going to fly out of your hands, but as light as possible. and it's going to be 2-second cadence for the shots. So it's 1001, 1002, bang. Now we're going to do that for the first 3 magazines. Light grip on the first mag, medium grip second mag, heavy grip third mag. We're going to figure out what grip you like. Then we're going to go and repeat that on 1 more magazine. Now this is shooting a target that's probably about 15 yards away, seems to work about the best. Now you go from that to setting up your splits a lot faster. You're going to start going down to 1 second for a full magazine, then a ½ second for a full magazine, and then as fast as you can pull the trigger. Always bringing those sights back to the exact same spot. If your gun goes up a particular direction, like up left or up or right in the recoil, you're going to be able to adjust your grip as far as your right hand and left hand pressure to steer that gun when it's in recoil. So if you have it going up or right and you relax the pressure on your right hand, you're going to find that that gun will straighten out. You might have to relax the pressure on the right hand and slightly increase the pressure on the left hand. You'll be able to control the direction of the flip or the recoil with that iron sight or that red dot going straight up and down. Get out on the range, try that out, and work your timing drills. And you're going to find you're going to be shooting a lot better when you get done. Okay, Kevin, we've got an IPSC stage here at a local match out of Rio Salado. And this is a fairly complicated one. It's one of the stages that you can actually shoot about 5 different ways. So we're going to figure out the best way to shoot it. And the first thing I do is come up to a stage, I figure out and read the course description. I figure out how many rounds it is and where those targets are. This stage here has 32 rounds of ammo. There's 14 targets for 28 rounds, and there's 4 pepper poppers. Now those 4 pepper poppers modify our positioning a little bit because of the angles on them. And then we've got a couple of fairly hard targets down and below here in the back. So what we've got to do is figure out our angling and what the best way to shoot the stage is. I refer to that just as, it's just the first section of figuring out a stage, and then I go through and I block the stage out. After I've understood the stage, then I'll block the stage, and then I'll program the stage. So it's a nice 3-step process. If you do that consistently every time, you won't run into problems of, let's see, I don't know where that target's at, or I shot the stage and I forgot a target, you know, I missed my positions completely. You'll skip those major problems that people have. You'll get rid of the brain fades, you know, and we know what those are like, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So I'm going to come up on this stage here, and I'm going to take a look for all the targets right now. So let's have you come over here. Okay, the first thing I notice is I've got 2 targets right over here and 2 targets right over here. Now, these targets have to be shot before breaking the 180. And the 180 is set up right here on the bay. So what I can't do is go past that and try to shoot those. So I'm going to have to shoot those first before I do anything else on the stage. So I'm going to shoot the 2 on the right first because they look like they appear first as I'm coming in right here. And then I'm going to come over to the left, shoot it, or swing in and shoot these 2. Now I've got 1 down low target, the ones we talked about in the front. I'm going to come in, shoot him at an angle, swing on back, and swing through this batch of targets right here. Now, because of the capacity of my gun, I'm going to do a reload here, come down and shoot this low target right in here, come over and shoot the rest of them right here. Now, I've minimized my positioning. I've got 1 position that I shoot pretty much 4 targets in. It's just kind of a floating position. I'm kind of moving right through them, shooting on the move. Then I'm coming through, I'm shooting a static position. I'm shooting on the move, coming into him, going static and shooting the rest of the targets. I'm doing my reload. Now it's a very short spot to do that reload, so you want to hit a clean load. Hit that one. There's an exact spot for this one to hit it in, right here. So you've got to make sure when you come off your load, your positioning is set up just right. Then I'm going to swing over and step in. Okay, now that I've figured out the stage, I understand it and I've blocked it out, I know where I need to go, I'm going to go and program it so that I know in my mind exactly what I have to do. mental visualization is the key part to shooting well. If you don't visualize your stages, you're always going to hold yourself back, and that's where most of our errors come from. On a stage, we have that brain fade where we hand our brain off to the RO and we just keep on shooting. We don't really know where we're going because we didn't tell our body in the first place what we needed to do. So I visualized the stage by going through in my head every single target that I need to shoot and knowing what I have to do on them, visually closing my eyes and seeing the picture in my mind of what I need to do. So now once I've done that, we step back and shoot the stage. When you step in the shooting box and you've loaded and made ready, just try to relax your mind and focus on one individual thing, like being smooth. Don't focus on being fast or anything like that. So just relax, let your body go, get yourself a dry grip, position yourself up. I'm here ready for a launch because I'm going to be jumping out of this position, and just enjoy it. Have some fun shooting. That's what we're out here for.
Hi.
Now you want a nice smooth stage and you want follow through at the end to make sure you hit everything. That the base of the thumb right here is in between the first and second knuckle of the thumb on the strong hand. So this thumb goes like this. What that does for us is gives us a full meat lock. Cut!
Start with what that does for us.
That's what it is, a meat lock. Full contact, how about that? I always call it a meat lock.
Hey, and then when you tell...
Where'd the shot go?
I pulled it right.
You pulled it right. Why'd you pull it right?
Because there was no dot on my scope. I think it was off.
Well, you gotta have your dot on. Okay, go ahead and just start walking. And you know to go ahead and let it bounce. That's not it. Come on, Kevin. I'm gonna go kick that guy's ass with that big rifle. God. First rule of gun handling is that the gun is always loaded. Anytime you pick a handgun up or a rifle or a shotgun, make sure you check the action, keep him pointed in a safe direction, and never, ever forget to do that next part. What was the third one? This? Okay, now we're going to introduce you to a new gunsmith. Professional gunsmith. Be a lot smoother. You brought the gun back down. Get a little tired on your arms?
A little bit.
A little bit. Bring it back up. Okay, we're going to base of the thumb intersecting with the index, or the, bring that grip back up. All right, you're back up. It's tiring, isn't it?
Not for someone such a physical specimen as me. That'll get cut.
No, it won't.